So I was born in Ethiopia, but I grew up all over the States. And one of the main ways that I was able to really connect with Ethiopian culture growing up here was through the music. My parents would play these old cassettes in the car and in the house. But it wasn't until I started going to Ethiopia in 2001 that I really started connecting more strongly with the culture. And the first time I went to Ethiopia, my mom took me to the city of Bahar Dar in northern Ethiopia, to the shores of Lake Tana, which is the source of the Blue Nile.
I grew up in Cairo, and as a young kid, I used to cross the Nile every day to go to school. But Cairo is so crowded, and crossing the Nile was almost like crossing this barrier to go somewhere. And as a kid, you just start taking the Nile for granted in Egypt, and you think of it more as a barrier than you think about it as a river that connects Egypt to a lot of other cultures. Only when I came to the U.S. that I met musicians from all the other Nile cultures, and I started realizing that we share so much more than the water of the Nile.
Lake Victoria, which borders Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, is the source of the White Nile. And Ethiopia's Lake Tana is the source of the Blue Nile. The two rivers meet in Khartoum and then flow north through Egypt and empty out through the delta into the Mediterranean Sea.
So we thought, why not bring the music and the water together? What we want to do is bring musicians from all the Nile cultures, put them on a boat, and sail down the Nile. We want to build boats out of recycled water bottles, and the boats will be the stage where we'll perform to people on the riverbanks of the Nile. So after we perform, we're going to sit down with the people, and they get to meet the musicians and learn about their neighbors down the river.
So our floating caravan is going to include more than just musicians. We're bringing together hydrologists, anthropologists, climate scientists, fishermen, all people whose work and life centers around the river. We're bringing them together to a TEDx Nile where they can share their information, their ideas, their solutions with each other as well as with the people living up and down the river. So since we've been sharing this idea with people, the response has been really incredible. I received the TED Senior Fellowship for this project, and we presented the idea to Lincoln Center in New York City, and they were so excited about it that the Atrium at Lincoln Center agreed to be our presenting partners. So in 2013, the Nile Project will perform in New York City with Lincoln Center.
So here's our plan. In April 2012, Meklit and I are going on a scout trip where we're going to audition all the musicians for the Nile Project and meet with our local advisors. Once we have a band, we're going to organize a residency in Luxor where all the musicians will get together to play music and make the music for the Nile Project. Then next year, we're going to go sailing down the Nile. And in 2013, the Nile Project All-Stars will tour Europe and the US.
And there's going to be so much more. We're going to have educational curricula, visual arts exhibits, collaborations with other river projects. But before we get to all that, we need your help to get to the river. So right now, we're seeking to raise $10,000, which will cover the costs of the scouting trip in April of 2012. By the end of the trip, we'll have a band, and we'll have collected songs about the Nile from up and down the river.
And if we can raise more than $10,000, we'll use that money towards recording our new CD, towards the residency in Luxor, and towards producing our international tour in Europe and the US.
Thank you for helping us get to the river. His feet are bare, dusty, dusty, dusty. Walk toward home, 40 years since home. Dusty, dusty, dusty. Streets wider than they used to be. Signs are in